The rain battered the windows of the old Virginia farmhouse, each drop a hammer against my heart. I stood alone in the living room, staring at the faded photo of Eli's family on the mantel, my fingers trembling as I clutched the letter I'd found tucked inside his father's Bible. It was addressed to Mimi's name in Eli's jagged handwriting, and its words burned through me. I can't keep hiding us. Sam, I love you. I'm telling him tonight. My knees buckled. Eli was upstairs, confessing our love to his father, a man whose shadow loomed over this house like a storm cloud. Pastor John, with his fire and brimstone sermons and unyielding grip on this small town, wasn't just Eli's father, was my father-in-law. And the thought of him knowing about us sent ice through my veins. We'd been so careful, stealing moments in the woods behind the church, whispering promises under starlight. But now the truth was spilling out, and I wasn't ready. Eli and I met 2 years ago at a community barbecue in Richmond. I was new in town, a graphic designer escaping the chaos of New York for a quieter life. He was the pastor's son, all charm and quiet strength, with eyes that held secrets and a laugh that felt like home. We clicked instantly, trading stories over sweet tea. But it wasn't until he drove me home under a moonlit sky that he kissed me, tentative and electric, in the cab of his pickup truck. That night, we swore to keep it secret, not just because of the town's prying eyes, but because of Pastor John, whose love for Eli was fierce but came with expectations heavier than the Bible he preached from. The floorboards creaked above me, snapping me back to the present. My heart raced as I shoved the letter into my pocket, the paper crumpling against my shaking fingers. I'd come to the house to grab Eli's jacket, left behind after last night's stolen hour in the barn. But now I was trapped, waiting for the fallout. The door at the top of the stairs swung open, and heavy footsteps descended. It wasn't Eli. Pastor John filled the doorway, his broad frame casting a shadow across the room. His eyes, usually warm when he spoke of his son, were cold now, pinning me in place. "Samuel," he said, his voice low and deliberate, like a judge delivering a verdict. "What are you doing in my house?" I opened my mouth, but no words came. The letter in my pocket felt like a live wire. Tu was just grabbing something for Eli. I stammered, my voice barely above a whisper. His gaze flicked to my hand, still hovering near my pocket, and I swore he knew. He stepped closer, his boots thudding against the hardwood, and I braced myself for whatever came next. "Eli's upstairs, crying," he said, his words slicing through the air. "Says he's got something to tell me about you too." He paused, his eyes searching mine, and I felt exposed, like he could see every kiss, every whispered promise. "You care to explain before I hear it from him?" My throat tightened. I wanted to run, to grab Eli and flee this house, this town, this suffocating weight of judgment. But I loved Eli too much to leave him to face this alone. "Sir," I said, forcing my voice steady, "I love your son, and he loves me." The silence that followed was deafening. Pastor John's face didn't change, but his hands clenched into fists, the knuckles white. I waited for the explosion, the sermon, the condemnation I'd heard in his pulpit rants about sin. But instead, he turned and walked to the fireplace, staring at the photo of Eli as a boy, gap-toothed and grinning. "You think you know what love is?" he asked, his voice quieter now, almost broken. "You think you can just waltz into my family and upend everything?" I swallowed hard. I didn't choose this, sir. Neither did Eli. It just happened. He laughed, a bitter sound that made my skin crawl. Happened, he repeated, turning to face me. You think love excuses sneaking around behind my back, lying to my face every Sunday when you sit in my pews. He took a step closer, and I fought the urge to back away. You're tearing my son apart, Samuel. You're tearing this family apart. His words hit like a punch, and guilt twisted in my chest. I thought of Eli upstairs, his kind heart breaking as he tried to bridge the gap between the father he loved and the man he couldn't live without. I'm not trying to hurt anyone, I said, my voice cracking. I just want to be with him. Pastor John's eyes softened for a fraction of a second, and I thought I saw something regret. Maybe. Or pain. But then his jaw tightened, and he pointed to the door. Get out, he said. Don't come back until I've talked to my son. I wanted to argue, to stay and fight for Eli, but the weight of his stare pushed me toward the door. As I stepped into the rain, the letter in my pocket felt heavier than ever. I didn't know what Pastor John would do next, but the look in his eyes haunted me, a promise of something far worse than words. The rain followed me all the way to the motel on the edge of town, where I sat on the sagging bed, staring at my phone. No messages from Eli. No calls. Just silence, thick and oppressive, like the storm outside. I replayed Pastor John's words in my head, each one a splinter in my heart. You're tearing my son apart. Was I? All I'd ever wanted was to love Eli, to build a life with him. But now I wondered if my love was a curse, dragging him into a war with his own family. I thought back to last summer, when Eli and I had driven to the Chesapeake Bay, just the two of us. We'd walked along the shore, barefoot in the sand, his hand brushing mine when no one was looking. He'd talked about his dreams opening a small bookstore, maybe, or moving to a city where we could be ourselves without fear. I want a life with you, Sam, he'd said, his voice soft against the crash of waves. But I can't lose my dad. I'd promised him we'd find a way. But now, sitting in this dingy motel room, that promise felt like a lie. My phone buzzed, and my heart leapt. It was Eli. Meet me at the old oak by the river. Midnight. Relief flooded me, but it was laced with dread. What had his father said? What had he done? I glanced at the clock, 3 hours to go. I spent them pacing, the letter still crumpled in my pocket, its words a lifeline and a noose. When midnight came, I drove to the river, the headlights cutting through the fog. The old oak stood like a sentinel, its branches heavy with secrets. Eli was there, leaning against the trunk, his face pale under the moonlight. He looked smaller, somehow, like the weight of his father's judgment had shrunk him. I ran to him, pulling him into my arms. And for a moment, we just held each other, the world falling away. He knows, Eli whispered against my shoulder. I told him everything. He didn't yell, Sam. He just looked at me like I was a stranger. His voice broke, and I felt his tears soak through my shirt. He said I'm choosing sin over family, that I'm throwing away everything he's built for me. I pulled back, cupping his face in my hands. His eyes were red, but they still held that spark I'd fallen for, the one that made me believe in us. You're not throwing anything away, I said fiercely. You're choosing to be honest, to be you. He shook his head, pulling away. You don't get it. Sam. He's my dad. He's all I've got besides you. If I lose him, he trailed off, staring at the river, its surface glinting like shattered glass. He wants me to go to some retreat. Says it'll fix me. The words hit like a freight train. Conversion therapy. I'd heard the stories friends in New York who'd come out broken, hollowed out by shame disguised as salvation. No, I said, my voice shaking with anger. You're not going. I won't let you. It's not that simple, Eli said, his voice barely audible. He's giving me an ultimatum. Him or you. The world tilted. I wanted to scream, to tear down the stars, to burn that farmhouse to the ground. But all I could do was take his hand, lacing our fingers together. Then choose me, I said, my voice raw. Choose us. Eli's eyes met mine, and for a moment, I thought he would. But then he pulled his hand away, and my heart cracked. I need time. Sam, he said. I can't just walk away from him. Not yet. I wanted to fight, to beg, but the pain in his eyes stopped me. He was torn, caught between two loves, and I couldn't force him to choose. Not tonight. I'll wait, I said, though every word hurt. But I'm not giving up on us. He nodded, tears spilling down his cheeks. I love you, he whispered, then turned and walked into the fog, leaving me alone under the oak. I sank to my knees, the letter falling from my pocket into the dirt. I didn't pick it up. What was the point? The words couldn't save us now. Weeks passed, each one heavier than the last. Eli stopped answering my texts, and the farmhouse became a fortress I couldn't breach. I stayed in town, renting a room above the diner, hoping for a sign he hadn't given up. Every night, I dreamed of Pastor John's cold stare, his words echoing, "You're tearing my son apart." And every morning, I woke with the same question, was I? I threw myself into work, designing flyers for local businesses, but my heart wasn't in it. The town felt smaller, its whispers louder. People stared when I walked by, their eyes full of judgment or pity. Word had spread Pastor John's son was struggling, and I was the cause. I didn't care about them. I cared about Eli, and the silence was killing me. One evening, as I closed my laptop, a knock came at my door. My heart leapt, hoping it was Eli, but it was Sarah, the diner's owner and Eli's childhood friend. Her face was grim. "Sam," she said, "you need to come to the church. Now." I followed her through the rain-slicked streets, fear clawing at my chest. The church loomed ahead, its steeple a dark finger against the sky. Inside, the pews were empty, but voices echoed from the back room. I recognized Eli's, strained and desperate, and Pastor John's, low and unyielding. Sarah pushed me toward the door, whispering, "He needs you." I stepped inside and froze. Eli sat at a table, his head in his hands, while Pastor John stood over him, a pamphlet in his hand. The word redemption was emblazoned on it, and my blood ran cold. Eli looked up, his eyes locking on mine, and I saw it fear. Yes, but also a flicker of defiance. "Samuel," Pastor John said, his voice icy, "you shouldn't be here." "I'm here for Eli," I said, stepping forward. and I'm not leaving without him. Eli stood, his chair scraping against the floor. Dad, stop, he said, his voice trembling but strong. I'm not going to that retreat. I'm not broken. I love Sam, and I'm done pretending I don't. Pastor John's face twisted, a mix of anger and anguish. You're my son, he said. I'm trying to save you. Save me. Eli's voice rose, raw and powerful. You're trying to erase me. Sam sees me. He loves me for who I am, not who you want me to be. The room fell silent, the weight of Eli's words hanging between us. Pastor John looked at his son, then at me, and for the first time, I saw cracks in his armored doubt. Maybe, or the fear of losing the only family he had left. He set the pamphlet down and walked out, leaving the door open behind him. Eli crossed the room in 3 strides and pulled me into his arms. I'm sorry, he whispered. I was scared. But I choose you. I choose us. We left the church hand in hand, the rain washing away the weight of secrets. Pastor John didn't follow, but I knew this wasn't the end. He'd fight for Eli in his own way, and we'd face that battle together. For now, though, we had each other, and that was enough. Months later, we moved to D.C., where Eli opened his bookstore and I took on freelance projects. We built a life, not perfect, but ours, filled with quiet mornings and loud laughter. Pastor John sent a letter once, short and stiff, but it ended with, I'm trying to understand. It wasn't acceptance. Not yet. But it was a start. Every night, as I lay beside Eli, I thought of that moment in the farmhouse, when fear nearly tore us apart. It haunted me still, but not with pain. It reminded me of what we'd fought for, what we'd won, a love that refused to break, no matter the cost.